Hey everybody, this is Professor X. Is this thing on? Is this thing on? This thing appears to be on. Alright, I am going to, what we're going to do here is I'm going to give you a walkthrough, kind of a basic intro to our new game, A Night in Quasit Manor. Currently it's not available, but we're in the testing phase, making sure that everything works, and this is kind of an intro video to give you an advanced idea of what the game is going to be like and to give you a basic starting guide when you do play it. So when you click on the link that we put out when we publish it, you'll come to this page. You do not need at this point to make a profile. It doesn't hurt if you want to do things like, if you see down here, you can do reviews or give comments. If you want to do that once the game is public, or comment on other games, or create your own game, you would need to log in and create a password and all that stuff. If not, you can just play online just by clicking on this one. I know it looks a little bit like it's one of those like clickbait link things, but it's not. This is actually the game. So you click on that. All right, and you will come to this page. There, I've yet to figure out on this thing, beyond coding, how to get the the text to start at the right place. So on a couple of screens, you'll have to scroll back up in order to be able to see everything. The title production page there. A couple of things to point out here that you should pay attention to. Up here at the top, will tell you what room you're in. That's helpful for remembering where to go and where you've been and that type of thing. Over here to the right upper right hand corner, and if when you're playing the game, if you do not see these things up here on the right hand corner, that means you cannot play the game. Uh, on phones that I've tried to play it on, that stuff doesn't appear. Without your inventory and the compass, you cannot play the game. So it works on laptops, regular, hard drive computers and tablets, as far as we can tell. Um, so inventory, the key things here is when you have something in your inventory, you click on it and you get this little menu. You have three options here, and I think most things will be the same. If you drop the item, some of the items you can't get back if you drop it. So others go back to where they were. Some fall into that actual room, but you probably won't be able to get things back if you drop them. So be very, very careful to not drop things. Unless you know that you don't need it. Use doesn't work for everything, and it might not appear on some of them. You click on this, and if you see down here, the text tells you that you can't use it because it's a letter. So, but you can look at it, and then you would do that by clicking on this one, clicking on. There we go. Now it's going to pop up three times. All right, so scroll up to the top of the letter. And this second letter here, the Wolfram Heart letter, is an in-world letter. So the details in this, and I'm not going to read through everything in the game, but the details on this are about the story and give you basically the starting point in-world, how the thing starts, and in the last paragraph gives you your goal, okay? So the letter was sent to you before you got to the house. You accepted. That's why you're there. You are locked in. You don't get the money unless you escape the house. The other letter, the Deadpool letter, shockingly, is it's basically it's called the Deadpool letter because it breaks the fourth wall. But basically, this is your kind of your key instructions for the game, and this is the only time in the game that you'll hear something outside, anything instructional or anything like that. So I'm not going to go through all of this, obviously, but there's a couple of key things here that'll help you play the game better. The first one is that you've got to really be very open to exploring and trying things out here. These, classic text-based adventure game, it depends on, you get a lot of options depending on what you try, and connecting things together are the ways to advance. The most obvious way is, like, in order to open a locked door, you got to get a key. So, but other things have interactions like that as well. So you need to take things and try them and look at them and use them and whatever your options are, open them. That's how you figure out things. And there are clues, so it starts off random and then it'll narrow down over time. Also, keep in mind that the house itself does have like an actual historical precedent, and it is the Winchester Manor, which is this weird thing that I'll in the comments to this video I'll put a link to a story about the Winchester house. But this house is patterned after that. Basically, it's not a house that's built by conventional standards, and it has secrets and mysteries, and you have to find them to figure out things. So, all right, number 2. This is key to note that some things are only usable in certain rooms. Like, you know, if a key matches a specific door, and it's not like a skeleton key, then it's only going to work in the room where that door is. So you'll get error messages if you try to use things in the wrong place, but that doesn't mean you can't use it somewhere else. Number 3, things happen what's in your inventory will not just be physical objects. I'll show you in a second that you can pick up other things, and those other things that you pick up kind of influence what happens in the game. So I'll show you this in a second, but this text scrolling thing, if you're exploring a room with a lot of items in it, will get annoying to have to scroll back up. So there's a tip on that. So if I wanted to go, I won't do it yet, but if I wanted to go back up to the text of this room, the easiest way to do it is step out of the room and then step back in, and it takes you back to the stop of that room. So I'll show you that in a second, since we're still looking at this letter, which is not related to this room. So think of this somewhat like a very old school setup in terms of death of your character. You are going to almost certainly die in this game, and you only have one life. But once you die, you still remember in real life everything that you saw, so you can use that as a learning experience to go through it. So, you know, many of the earliest games, you got in there and you died and you had to start over. And this is like that, but it's also, you don't have to re-explore everything. You can go directly for the things that you know are important if you die and have to come back. Sound, there is some sound in this game. I'll show you some of that in a bit. So you should turn it up to get the full effect. Particularly note that don't do it in a place. Some of the stuff can be loud and it's scary because you're in a haunted house or whatever. So don't do it in public, or put your headphones on if you're in public, that type of thing. There are multiple layered hints in this game. That's all I'll say. That almost everything in here was chosen for a reason, and while the game has some misdirection in it, it doesn't lie to you. So if you find a clue and it is a clue, then you can believe that clue. You know what I'm saying? So it's, pay attention a little bit to that if something looks like a clue, it probably is a clue. If something seems superfluous, then it probably is superfluous. But those aren't 100%. It's just, the game isn't going to say, you've got to do this, and then if you do that, you'll die. Your mistakes will be from your choices in exploring and stuff like that. So, now, we look at the letter again, and we lose the stuff that's in the room. If we don't want to scroll all the way back up, what you can do is leave the room, and then go right back in, and you're back up at the top here, and you can see now the stuff that you saw before. I would suggest trying things out so most of these lines, although not 100% of them, most of these lines are doorways into new rooms or continuations of hallways or whatever. So in order to move from place to place, you use these arrows over here, and if the arrow is available there, you can go that direction. And you also note there's an up and down here that you'll use for stairs. So, like I showed before, when I wanted to go out and come back in the room, I went left to go out, and then I went right to go back in. Now, this game works, this is hypertext, so anything that is blue with an underline is something you can click on. Now, when you click on it, you're going to get options. So, there's probably some advanced script that you can write into the game to change this, but I couldn't find it. So, not all of these things work. So, some of them pop up, like everything that's supposed to work in the game works, but there are sometimes you're going to have options here that aren't real options. So this says you can take the umbrella stand, but if you click on that, you can't take it, obviously. And so I'm not sure why that option's there, and it isn't there for everything like that. So play around and see what happens, but you will very rarely, if ever, see the word open, and that's not something that's openable. I don't think there's any time that it does that. Look at almost always works. There's some things that are just, they're not a thing, so when you look at them, you won't see anything. But often if you look at things, you'll get more detail. So, for instance, if you look at this umbrella stand, you're told that there are 3 umbrellas in it, and each one of them is clickable. You could also have gotten that by clicking open it. Nope, you can't open it. So I don't know why they put that in there. So there is, the open option does sometimes not work, but it's if you can look at something or open it, you'll find out what's in that thing depending on what it is. So since this one's open, an umbrella stand is open, you don't have to open it. So you can just look at the umbrellas. So here you just have look at and take as options. You hit take and all of a sudden it's up here. And the additional thing that happens when you click on when something is in your inventory, you get that use option. There you used the Hello Kitty umbrella and opened it. That doesn't necessarily do anything here, may or may not somewhere else. But that's what you can do with items is use them. All right. And again, I would suggest not dropping things unless you're certain that you know you don't need them. And you don't know if you need this umbrella or not. So I'm not going to drop it now. Let's move around a bit. We're going to come over here to the sitting room. And in the sitting room, you can see there are chairs and a couch, a bar, a coffee table. You can look at each of these things individually. You don't have to look at all of them. If you look at it, maybe nothing. Oh, maybe there is something. I won't spoil. There won't be any real spoilers in here, but maybe if there's a tear in the couch and the thing tells you there's a tear in the couch, maybe you should look at the tear in the couch. So now you'll see this when we go up here. It has lines for 3 different directions, but over here it doesn't have them. This one's not highlighted, so you can't go that way. Some of those are just artifacts. I don't know why they're there. So some of them may mean something, but most of them, there's no way to know without checking it. So, and then this is just a hallway, so you can keep going through. Now you have a way over here, and again, there's items in there. You can check out the items. Maybe if you open an item, there's something inside there. And something like this, of course, if you look at it, maybe there's more details in it, and maybe those help you with hints or tell you some of the story or something like that. So you also will find go back here to the foyer where the umbrellas were, but something I would suggest trying is like, this isn't the trick I use, but wouldn't it be a great trick if you were the way to exit and win the game you could have just done without exploring? But you can't in this way. But again, that's how you would win the game, is being able to open that door. Go over here, we have the office, and there's a desk and a bookshelf. There's lots of bookshelves and letters and various things in here to read. Take a look at them, and you'll see what you can find. And you often will find things that, some of these things are just jokes, other things are hints. And I'm not going to tell you what the hints are, obviously, but you can say, for instance, look at these items, and maybe there's something there, maybe there's not something there. It's often the case that maybe something else happens when you look at them, and maybe it gives you information, or... And again, like I said, you can go out of the room and then come back in, and it takes you back to the things a little easier than having to scroll up. You can also just scroll if you want to, but I prefer to do it that way, just quicker. But so you can click on these things, and some of them are giving you hints about the game. Some of them might have other items in them. You just got to look around and see. You can also do things like look at the desk, and what do you got there? You've got things on the desk, and maybe you can check those out. So maybe you open the shoebox and there's letters in there, and maybe you want to take that letter. Maybe it helps you somewhere else. You can read it without taking it, but you can also take the letter and look at it. And maybe there are hints in some of that stuff. You also have other possibilities here, such as what's in the drawer. You open the drawer and you see some things like, oh, whoa, there's a key in here. Maybe you take the key, and maybe when you take the key, it opens the door. And to try that, you would take the key next to that door and just use it. Oh, that key doesn't work here, so maybe that's not the right key. So there are other keys. And we won't go through every room here, but you can look around. There's other ways to go. Also note, you'll see this is a staircase, so this is highlighted. So now you can go up to the next level, and there's more stuff there. So that's kind of the basic idea of how to get started on the game. A little further along the line, we'll do we'll have some people do some walkthroughs after they play the game, and maybe we'll do a kind of behind the scenes how we put the game together, but not too soon. I don't want to put any spoilers on it. So that's it, and thanks for watching. And play the game. It's fun.